All right, here we are. We're about ready to start talking about the branches of government. So now, the branches of government, the other two branches are going to be what? If we have the federal government, which is the whole United States, what do you think the next tier down would be? State government. And what's the next tier down? County and local, yeah. It's county and city, local. That those two go together as our local governments, right? So we have federal, state, and local governments, and they all kind of have the same model. And I think you'll see that as we read. Okay, so it says our vocabulary. It's going to be democracy, jury, federal, legislative branch, Congress, executive branch, and the judicial branch. The national government, lesson one. Bless you. The United States Constitution was created to protect the rights and freedoms of the American people. It ensures that every citizen has a voice in determining the future of the country. This document was not written by a king or a business leader. The Constitution was written by people of the United States for the people of the United States, right? We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union. That's how the Constitution starts. Pretty good way to start, isn't it? Government by the people, not a king, not a group, but by us, by us, right? So really when you say the government, you're referring to yourself. The United States is a democracy. A democracy is a system of government in which the people elect their leaders. American citizens elect those who run the government. As you have learned, a citizen is a person who is born in a country or who has earned the right to become a member of that country by law. Rights and responsibilities. Citizens of the United States have certain rights, including the right to vote. Voting gives citizens the power to choose their leaders. That's a pretty powerful thing for us to have, isn't it? Freedom of speech and freedom of religion are two more important rights that the United States citizens have. Americans can say what they think and practice what they believe. Along with these rights come responsibilities. Citizens have a duty to obey the laws of the country. Good citizens not only obey the laws, but also vote for leaders who believe in our country's laws. Americans must also pay taxes. Taxes are needed because the government spends money on items and services such as schools, highways, and the military. Tax money is also used to help victims of disease, to take care of the sick and of disasters, to take care of the sick and to keep our national parks safe and clean. Rights often depend on responsibilities. For example, a person has a right to a fair trial. However, there can only be a fair trial if citizens agree to serve on a jury, a group of citizens in a court of law who decide if someone accused of a crime is innocent or guilty. And then it has this question: why would people want to live in a democracy? Why do you think you would want to live in a democracy? That's something I want you guys to answer. All right, so we talked about this. I front loaded with this. There are how many branches of government? How many? Everyone, say it. We have three branches of our national government are the legislative branch. They make the laws. There's 100 senators, 430 representatives in the House, right? So the Senate has 100 representatives, and the House of Representatives has 435 representatives. So you'll hear on the news, the Senate and the House, right? The Senate has 100 people representing it, and the House of Representatives has 435. Okay? What the legislative branch does is it creates laws. Okay? And it decides how much money to spend. All right. The executive branch makes sure that the laws are carried out. they choose people to head national departments, right? So they pick our institutions and groups that are leading up these national departments, heading up these departments. The executive branch leads the military. Who is the commander in chief of our military? Yes, the president of the United States. The president is the leader of our military. And the executive branch meets with leaders of other countries. The judicial branch, now, they make sure that the laws that the legislative branch, that laws that they come up with, are constitutional. In other words, they meet the requirements of the Constitution, right? Those new laws do. And if they don't, they label it unconstitutional. So make sure that laws follow the United States Constitution. And then the judicial branch also is in charge of the lower courts, and they decide if the laws have been obeyed in the lower courts, right? All right. Which branch of the national government is made up of senators and representatives? So senators, which branch, which body is that? That would be the U.S. It's right in the title, Senate, right? And then the House of Representatives is the House. So you have the Senate and the House. But what branch do those two belong to? Legislative, executive, or judicial? Everyone? Legislative. All right. So branches of government. The writers of the United States Constitution separated government power into three parts or branches. And why did they do that? Remember, we just talked about this. Why did they separate those powers? So that one person or group of people don't have too much power. They have equal, separate but equal powers, yes. All right, so each branch of the federal or national government has different responsibilities, which are described in the Constitution. The writers also set up a system of checks and balances to make sure that each branch does not abuse its power. Checks and balances allows each branch to check the other branches, so there remains a balance of control among them. This system is a very important part of our government, making the laws. The legislative branch, which is housed in the United States Capitol building, makes the laws. It is divided into two groups, the Senate and the House of Representatives, that make up the United States Congress. So the House of Representatives has how many people in it? Do you remember? 435. And the Senate has how many? 100. And each of those bodies make up the United States Congress. Every state elects 2 people to the Senate. Senators serve for 6 years. The number of representatives elected by the state is determined by a state's population. Unlike senators, representatives serve for only 2 years. Role of the president. Well, the president serves under the executive branch of government. Centered in the White House, the president approves and carries out the laws, right? The executive branch does. The head of the executive branch is the president. Every 4 years, citizens vote to elect a president and a vice president as a team. If anything happens to the president, the vice president takes over. The chart on this page lists some of the president's duties. So I don't know that I have that chart, but I will follow it up here in a second. List some of the president's duties, okay? The court system. Let's see. Oh, yeah, here's the chart right here. The executive right there. Okay? The court system. That is the judicial branch. Centered in the United States Supreme Court, the judicial branch explains the laws. 9 Supreme Court judges, called justices, are appointed by the president. They head the judicial branch and serve for life. 9 citizens from Ohio have been appointed to the Supreme Court, including William H. Taft, Taft became Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court. In 1967, Thurgood Marshall became the first African American member of the U.S. Supreme Court. That's pretty awesome. The Supreme Court justices make sure that laws follow the Constitution. They check federal, state, and local governments and make sure that they are running correctly. When decisions in the lower court cases have been challenged, the Supreme Court may hear these cases. Any decision by the U.S. Supreme Court is final. How are U.S. senators and representatives different, right? There's some things that are different about them. Okay, here we go. Things that we learned. We learned that the United States is a democracy. Citizens elect their leaders and have rights and responsibilities. The federal government has three branches: legislative, executive, and the judicial. Power is shared among them. Here are the focus review questions. Focus question number 1. What plan of government does the U.S. Constitution call for? All right, and then you're going to write a paragraph about the national government, use the vocabulary terms. History. Explain why the writers of the United States Constitution set up a system of checks and balances. Critical thinking. If a state has a population of 5 million, how many senators would that state have? Okay. Reading strategy. Use the chart to draw conclusions about the duties of the president. So you'll use that chart. What are the duties of the president? Okay. Write about how our country might have been different if it had been set up, not had been set up by a democracy, right? What would be different if we were not a democracy? And then finally, make a poster to show 3 branches of our government. Include pictures of the U.S. Capitol building, the White House, and the Supreme Court building. List the responsibilities of each branch on your poster. All right, so we're going to talk about that here right now. So be done with this.